city of nearly 800,000 people that just has one road going through it and one road going around it. So it means that people have to walk through areas, these undulating hills that are slippery and dangerous, and so that means that they won't be able to access distributions of food and housing material as the houses start to fall apart under the weather conditions. They also won't be able to easily access health facilities.
Pablo Kolobos is the head of mission for Doctors Without Borders in Bangladesh. Pablo, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Virtual Weight Loss and Wellness Center proudly supports WHYY. Swimsuit season is around the corner. If you need help getting your body beach ready, Virtua's Weight Loss and Wellness Center can help. If you have 10 to 100 pounds to lose, they can devise a personalized nutrition and exercise plan that may be able to help you reach your goals and maintain them for years to come. More information is available online at virtua.org. That's virtua.org.
This is The Takeaway, and I'm Tanzina Vega. Now, another chapter of our Case in Point series, looking at how the justice system can be complex and sometimes not make a ton of sense. For almost a year, 42-year-old Manuel Herrera has been held at an immigration detention center in New Jersey. One thing is clear, the United States is his home. He spent nearly his entire life in this country and is raising 2 kids here. But what's not clear is whether his detention is illegal.
He actually doesn't fully know himself whether or not he's a U.S. citizen, which just points to the fact that citizenship we think of as this very clear-cut status, and in reality it's based on a lot of really complicated historical records that oftentimes people themselves don't even know what their own status is.
As Christy Thompson from the Marshall Project explains, Herrera's case illustrates how complicated verifying citizenship can sometimes be.
We think of citizenship as, you are either born here or you weren't, if you have a passport, if you don't, but citizenship can also be based on having it acquired or derived through previous generations, and there's all of these complicated factors such as how old your parents were when they came to the country, how long they lived in this country, whether they were married at the time, whether they had custody of you. It's a really complicated matrix of deciding when someone passes on their citizenship to a future generation. And a lot of people like Manuel, he came here from Honduras on a green card when he was 2 months old, grew up between Manhattan and the Bronx. A lot of people don't think about their status or question it, especially if you're not leaving the country. It's not something that comes up. So he wasn't even really thinking about it until about a year ago when he got picked up by ICE and suddenly found himself facing deportation to this country that he's never known, and he doesn't even speak the language.
And how did ICE find him? How did they pick him up?
They picked him up at a criminal courthouse in Manhattan, which is an issue that's been happening a lot in the city, where people will go to, he was dismissing another misdemeanor case totally unrelated to immigration, and you walk out the front doors thinking you're going to be leaving that day, and ICE officers are waiting for you. So his partner, the mother of his 2 kids, was with him that day and saw as he was picked up and taken away. They had no idea how long he was going to be gone for, and he's since been gone for about a year, separated from her and his 2 kids.
Knowing that I was going to be able to kiss my kids goodnight that night was like, it was an experience I don't wish on anybody.
I was able to meet with Manuel. They brought him in from New Jersey to the immigration court in Lower Manhattan, and what he wanted to talk most about was what it has been like to be separated from his 2 kids, not being able to see them, only being able to talk to them when he's on a phone in the middle of a dorm surrounded by, 60 other men waiting for their chance.
When you hear your children, crying on the phone, Dad, when you coming, it's a lump in your throat you get, and you try to hold it to not shed tears around other men, you know what I'm saying? It's, you just go in your cell and you kick yourself in the behind and just, keep praying that one day, these doors open up and I get up out of here.
And his kids had started by coming to his immigration court hearings. That was one place where he could see them. But it was pretty traumatic for his kids, even though you're in immigration detention, a civil detention center. When you're brought into these court hearings, when he was brought into our interview, you're shackled, chained, handcuffed, wearing prison jumpsuits. and that was pretty traumatic for his kids, so they haven't been coming back to the hearings to see him.
And how
so
old
that
are
was
his
the main
kids?
thing. They're 8 and 13.
And you also spoke to him about his legal status. Let's take a listen.
When you hear the term legal, lawful, permanent resident, permanent stands for, unremovable. So, or, permanent stands for just, permanent.
Is he right about that?
He's not, and that's something that I've, in covering immigration, a lot of people have said to me, is that you think when you're a lawful permanent resident, you have a green card. A lot of people are surprised to find out that even relatively lower level nonviolent criminal convictions can jeopardize your status here, and especially now under the Trump administration. His last crime was from 2002. He never had a run-in with ICE. He didn't expect it to cause any problems for him. Right now, his case is sort of in a limbo in which they're fighting to access the records that would prove that he is a citizen in one of two different ways. And what's tricky about that is that in immigration court, you don't have the same right to legal discovery that you do if, say, you're a criminal defendant facing prison time. But if they find that he is not a citizen through the two ways that they're trying to argue he is, he's definitely deportable based on that criminal conviction, even though he had legal status in the country.
Has he ever been to Honduras?
Not since he was 2 months old. And it sounds like with his family, as with many families I've talked to who are in similar situations, he hasn't even really gotten to that point of trying to think of what would happen if I had to go back to this country. He's just holding out hope that he can prove that he actually is a citizen of this country, of the U.S., and that he has a right to stay here.
Now, just to be sure, a lot of the rhetoric we hear around ICE and deportations is often, at least from the administration, focused on what the administration calls criminal aliens, right? He does have a criminal record, and he's served time in the past in prison. Has this issue of citizenship ever come up at all in those previous incidents?
In the previous instance of being in prison? No,
Yeah.
because he hasn't had any run-ins with ICE previously. And I think what's interesting about his case is he knew that his parents and his grandparents were citizens, but he didn't know what that had meant for his case.
How can your parents and grandparents be citizens and you not be a citizen?
So his parents naturalized when he was older. He also applied to naturalize 22 years ago with U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. His attorneys have found that his application to naturalize himself has been open for 22 years. So it's still pending. They still haven't given him an answer on that application. His grandparents, he also knew, had
aid around graduate work and around other issues that are covered within the Prosper Act. But at this point, we're just not there yet.
Now, the schools that reap the most work-study benefits tend to be the elite colleges, right?
It's the way that the formula works, in part because a lot of these schools have been in the program for longer, so they get a larger share of the money. Schools like NYU, schools like public research universities also tend to get a large share of it because they've been participants for a much longer time. There are some bills in play right now to change that formula, and instead of having it rely so much on your historical participation, it would be what percentage of your student body is eligible, which again is that kind of marker to say that you are lower income. And as a result, what that would mean is that more federal work-study dollars would go to schools that have higher percentages of low-income students, ensuring that they are the ones who get to participate and benefit the most from the program.
All right, let's take another caller. We're going to go to Tanya in Westchester, who has a positive experience related to graduate student labor. Hi, Tanya.
Hi, my son is a PhD math candidate at the University of Chicago, and he sees, even though he's living on $26,000 a year, takes out no loans. It is a financial sacrifice, but he also sees it as he's getting this enormous benefit of this incredibly valuable education, and it's an investment into his future, and it's a very calculated choice he's made about his own path and future. He could have gone into the private sector and earned $100,000 off the bat, but he chose not to do that because it's a different path.
Yeah, I think that's a great example, and I think a lot of people entering graduate school are choosing going in with their eyes open and knowing what their income as a graduate assistant might be. But I want to say that one of the fights around graduate student labor and graduate student union organizing rights and trying to be recognized for collective bargaining, it's not just about pay. It's also about things like protection against sexual harassment. It's about, in some cases, access to workers' comp, where people who are injured on the job in their job as a graduate assistant in some states have been, and in some universities have been defined outside of the workers' comp system. So we get people doing very dangerous work in labs, working with chemicals, and they don't have access to workers' comp when they get injured. In the era of Me Too, we're seeing the importance of having appropriate procedures for people who have experienced sexual harassment, other forms of sexual misconduct. So there are a number of ways. It's not just the salary, that being recognized as employees and being able to collectively bargain for their rights can really, really make a huge difference.
So, if I understand right, some universities are framing being a TA as an educational experience, right?
Well, they are trying to define the graduate assistants as essentially students who are doing a few things here and there that are only enhancing their education but aren't contributing anything to the university, and they're in fact a cost to the university. So the notion sometimes becomes absurd that somehow a graduate employee grading undergraduate papers is not contributing anything to that undergraduate's education. It becomes a little bit absurd.
Tanya, was that helpful? All right, we lost Tanya here. I'm curious, Rebecca, when it comes to undergraduate experiences, whereas in graduate school, most of these people are doing work that is somehow related to their work, that's not often the case when it comes to undergraduate work study or anything, is it?
That's right. I mean, in most cases, as an undergrad work study worker, you'll take whatever job is available. In some cases, there might be some research-related work, some work related to your major that you might be able to do, but that's usually not guaranteed. And for many students, as the other guest mentioned, it would be the dining hall or checking people in at the campus rec center or something like that, which is less likely to be related to your major, although it may be.
And Danielle, we've got a question related to a previous bit of this conversation. The new tax law, does that mean that we don't have the same tuition credits as before? Some listeners are asking that question in terms of deductions for education costs.
Much of that was actually stricken out of the bill. So the issues in terms of interest rate deductions on student loans and all of those things were squashed at the end. So that was pretty beneficial. It hasn't been as detrimental as people were initially thinking that it was going to be, and I think a lot of that is because of the activity of graduate student union workers as well as protesters who were calling congressmen 24 hours a day saying, please don't make it more difficult for us to get an education.
Danielle Douglas Gabriel of the Washington Post and Rebecca Gibbon, labor studies professor at Rutgers, thank you both for joining us in this conversation today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll be back after a break.
WNYC is supported by Atlantic Health System, committed to improving the health of communities in northern New Jersey and creating a trusted network of caring, from home care to medical appointments to hospitalization and more. Info at atlantichealth.org/WNYC. The Charles H. Repson Foundation, because a great city needs an informed and engaged public. More information at repsonfoundation.org. WNYC's health coverage is supported in part by Science Sandbox, a Simons Foundation initiative dedicated to engaging everyone with the process of science. Your part-time controller, helping nonprofit organizations with all of their accounting and financial reporting needs. Your part-time controller, the nonprofit accounting specialists. More at yourparttimecontroller.com.
One thing that makes New York the greatest city in the world? Broadway. And right now you have the chance to see one of Broadway's biggest hits, Hamilton. When you donate to WNYC right now, you'll be entered to win a pair of tickets to a performance of Hamilton between July 1st and August 31st. You don't have to donate to enter, but we hope you will. Here's how to enter.
That number is 888-376-9692, or you can go online to WNYC.org and hit donate. You're listening to Midday. This is WNYC's Spring Fundraiser. I'm Arun Venugopal, and joining me today is Alex Botti, producer at The Takeaway. Hey there.
Hey Arun, so glad to be here, especially for these last few hours of the Hamilton Ticket Contest. When you make that donation to WNYC, you will be entered into that drawing to win a pair of tickets for this summer. The contest does end today, though, so if you have been thinking about donating, do it right now, and we will enter you in that contest. What better time? 888-376-9692 or WNYC.org.
That's right. There are 8 pairs of center orchestra tickets to Hamilton. Performance between July 1st and August 31st. A great way to mark your summer with the show. Hamilton show, very coveted pair of tickets. Just think about that. It's $100. Let me just give you some perspective on how far that money can go. I mean, right now you're listening to Midday. This show, every show here at WNYC, it costs money to fund. If we think about just the news programming that you're listening to, when you turn on the radio every morning, or maybe you wake up to it, WNYC pays NPR $3 million a year just to bring you programs from NPR, like Morning Edition, like All Things Considered. That's a couple $100,000 more than it was last year. So the prices are going up, and that's almost $8,000 a day that WNYC pays just for the NPR programming. It doesn't include what we pay for the BBC or to other institutions. And we like to think this is money well spent, okay? It goes towards reporters, to producers, to all the equipment, the logistics, just the cost of running a station. NPR alone has more than 30 bureaus worldwide, right? This is the news that keeps you informed. So call that number right now. Help us keep the radio on the air. Give us a call at 888-376-9692 or go online to WNYC.org.
And of course, we know that you do have a lot of choices when it comes to the news. We are very aware of that, so we're grateful that you come to WNYC for trusted voices like Brian Lehrer, for On the Media's Brooke Gladstone and Bob Garfield. We're exploring the way we interact with media and its effect on our culture every single week. You rely on them, but we rely on you, and they rely on you. 888-376-9692. That's 888-376-WNYC, or online you can see all of our fantastic thank you gifts ready for you at WNYC.org.
This is Brian Lehrer. If you gave for the first time last year, we want to thank you for your support. We'd also like to invite you to become a sustaining member. That's a listener who supports us with an automatic monthly donation in the amount you choose. That way you'll be entered in all the contests and giveaways, and you won't have to worry about renewing. Having a regular steady income stream each month allows us to better plan for the future. It's money we can rely on so we can buy and repair equipment, cover our expenses, and grow our newsroom. Because there's a lot of news out there. First-time giver last year, become a long-time sustainer right now. Here's how.
Just call 888-376-9692. Again, that's 888-376-9692, or go online to WNYC.org and hit the donate button. Now, we often tell you how these drives fit into WNYC's budget, like Brian was just saying. Let's flip it around for a second. How does $10, say $10 a month, fit into your budget? You know, that's actually just 4 rides in the subway. You know, it might be a load or 2 of wash. Sure, you need to keep on washing, but you could also maybe dip in a little deeper and try to help public radio stay on the air. I mean, these are all things that are central to your life. For all we know, you listen to public radio, to WNYC, several hours a day. Think of how much that does for you in your life, whether it keeps you entertained or just informed about your community, about your city, about the country, the world, if you're listening to NPR or to BBC. So, again, call that number, 888-376-9692, and make that pledge today, especially if you want those Hamilton tickets, or go online to WNYC.org.
Yeah, Arun, what you just said made me realize that this may be one of the few fantastic services in New York City that doesn't cost a lot of money. We are one of the affordable things here, and that is precious, especially if you listen to us every single day, as I know many of you do. So thank you. If you have already pledged your support, I want to say thank you to Mabel from Brooklyn, who said that WNYC is the soundtrack of my life. It nurtures me, enlightens me, gives me perspective. Mabel, thank you. And thanks to so many others who are sustaining us here. But we do need your support if you haven't done it yet. 888-376-9692 or WNYC.org, and we will enter you in that Hamilton ticket contest.
That's right. There's so many people like Mabel who they call it the soundtrack of their life. I think for a lot of us it really is.
Yes.
It's that thing that you wake up to. If you listen to Richard Haig,
He's
first
my
thing,
alarm.
there you go.
He's my alarm.
It's a great alarm to have. It's a lot less annoying than most other alarms,
Yes.
right? Maybe you continue listening later on or during your drive to work, for instance. You listen to Brian Lehrer in the morning. Perhaps you listen to midday during your lunch break. Or if you are an artist in your studio, I know a lot of people like that. They've got on all day. They're junkies. And I don't like to call it a problem, but it's definitely a condition. It's the public radio condition. Just think of all that listening you get out of public radio. All we're asking is to help us to stay on the air, really, because we have all these costs, producers, NPR programming, the engineers, all the great reporting that comes out of WNYC Newsroom. So again, just call that number 888-376-9692 or go online to WNYC.org. I think that one of the things, Alex, that you realize you're at the takeaway. We have a great new host, a great new show in Tanzina Vega. I mean, I think as a producer, you realize that there's a huge team that surrounds Tanzina. It's not just one or two people a day. It's a huge team, and they endeavor to stay on top of news. I mean, for you, I suppose that is the area that you consume, the air that you breathe every day.
Absolutely. We are behind the scenes happily, but we are many, and we are strong behind the scenes at the takeaway, just like behind the scenes at midday and at Brian Lehrer. There are so many smart, dedicated people who are doing that work. Help support us now. 888-376-9692 or WNYC.org.
That's right. And again, if you call right now, just think about it. You can qualify to win one of 8 pairs of Center Orchestra tickets to Hamilton. We have a special offer today. That's a performance between July 1st and August 31st. Again, call that number, 888-376-9692, 888-376-9692. Thank you.
This is WNYC, FM, HD, and AM, New York.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. If it doesn't happen, maybe it'll happen later. That's President Trump's latest read on the chances of a summit between him and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un June 12th. It's scheduled in Singapore, but the Kim regime's been unhappy with the U.S.'s demands that Pyongyang dismantle its nuclear program and with recent U.S. South Korean military drills. And so North Korea signaled the possibility it might not even show up for the summit. Today, Trump told reporters it may not work out for June 12th. The president's been spending this afternoon with South Korean leader Moon Jae-in to talk about the summit as if it's still happening. Both leaders agree on denuclearization but disagree on how to make it happen. And as NPR's Scott Horsley tells us, they also don't always see eye to eye when it comes to their own diplomatic relationship.
President Trump has been critical of South Korea in the past. He complains that country is effectively freeloading on the U.S. military and should pay a larger share of the cost of stationing 28,000 U.S. troops there. He's also unhappy about the U.S. trade deficit with South Korea, which topped $10 billion last year. Trump and Moon are very much united, though, in their shared desire to rid North Korea of its nuclear weapons.
NPR Scott Horsley reporting. On Capitol Hill today, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos was asked about an NPR report that aired earlier this morning, highlighting a troubled federal grant program for teachers. Here's NPR's Corey Turner.
The Teach Grant program gives teachers money for college in exchange for agreeing to teach a high-need subject like math for 4 years in a low-income school. NPR first reported that potentially thousands of teachers who are meeting those requirements may have had their grants converted to loans with interest because of paperwork problems. This morning, NPR reported that the Education Department has begun a top-to-bottom review of the program, and soon after, testifying before House lawmakers, DeVos, the department's chief, also acknowledged the Teach Grant problems.
We are aware of the issues within that program and have taken steps to address the issues therein.
The department tells NPR its review is in the early stages. Corey Turner, NPR News, Washington.
Turn now to southern Afghanistan, where a failed attempt to dispose of explosives is blamed in the deaths of at least 16 people. NPR's Dia Hadid says security forces found the explosives in a cluster of mechanic shops.
The blast caused an enormous pillar of smoke that plumed over Kandahar. A spokesperson for the provincial governor said nearly 40 people were wounded. They included 5 children. No militant group so far has claimed responsibility for leaving the explosives. And fighting continued in other parts of Afghanistan. The Taliban killed at least 14 policemen in the eastern Ghazni province. There, they're trying to take control of 2 districts. The Taliban recently announced they would step up attacks as part of their traditional spring offensive.
That's Dia Hadid. This is NPR News.
And you're listening to WNYC. I'm Jamie Floyd. President Donald Trump is scheduled to visit Long Island tomorrow, Wednesday. And when he does, Republican Congressman Dan Donovan will be at his side. Donovan, who represents Staten Island and parts of South Brooklyn, is facing a competitive re-election this fall with a challenge from former Republican Congressman Michael Grimm, who remains popular despite having spent time in prison for tax fraud. There are also several Democrats competing for their party's nomination in next month's primary. Trump is expected to use his visit to the region to discuss efforts to combat gang activity. Yesterday, the White House released a fact sheet in advance of the trip titled, "What You Need to Know About the Violent Animals of MS-13. That is quoting the White House press release and its language. And the pop artist Robert Indiana, best known for his iconic sculpture of the word love, has died. In 1971, Indiana shared with WNYC the sculpture's origin story.
I have a kind of a passion about symmetry and the dividing of things into equal parts. The word love is that way because those 4 letters best fit a square.
While the original love art is in a museum, a version of it can be seen at the corner of 6th Avenue and 55th Street in Manhattan. Robert Indiana was 89 years old. Periods of rain this afternoon, and tonight partly cloudy with a chance of rain as well. Currently 65 degrees under cloudy skies in Central Park at 106.
Support for NPR comes from C3 IoT, providing a software platform that enables organizations to deploy artificial intelligence, predictive analytics, and IoT solutions at industrial scale. Learn more at c3iot.ai.
Hi, I'm Arun Venugopal, and you are listening to Midday. Many of us have felt on occasion that we've been spending way too much time in the subway. Apparently, this has not been true of my next guest, Philip Ashworth Coppola. For the last 40 years, he's haunted the MTA subway stations, sketching and documenting these extraordinary taken-for-granted spaces. He has researched the artisans, the craftsmen, and the architects responsible for the beauty that is there. His work is currently on view in the exhibition Silver Connections, which is at the Transit Museum's Grand Central Gallery until June 24th. His is the subject of a documentary made by Ezra Bookstein and Jeremy Workman, and his work has been edited by the filmmakers into a single volume published by Princeton Architectural Press. Both the book and the documentary are titled One Track Mind. Philip Ashworth Coppola joins me here today, along with Ezra Bookstein and Jeremy Workman. Hi, guys.
Good afternoon.
Okay. Thanks for having us. Absolutely. Thanks for joining me. So, Philip, you did not grow up in New York, correct?
No, I'm from New Jersey.
Okay. Were you a train lover even as a kid?
Not really, no. This is something I sort of picked up midstream about 40 years ago.
Were you coming into the city as a young kid?
Not much, except for Thanksgiving Day Parade, Macy's, that was about it.
Okay.
That was the PATH train, or Hudson Manhattan then.
So you weren't going into the subway system too much?
Not then, no.
Okay. Do you remember your first sort of like feelings of like appreciation for the aesthetics of the subway system?
I would say I got my first dose when I went to the Transit Museum in Brooklyn when I began this study in the first place. That was back in '78.
Okay, now in the book, it says in the introduction to the book, in the early years, Coppola was often dismissed by subway historians as just another foamer, which is a new term to me.
Thanks. Thanks, guys.
It's not the nicest term. Is this your first exposure to this term?
No, I've heard it before, but this
So
is a new one.
they mean people who are obsessed with New York City subways and
Foaming
trains.
at the mouth.
Yes,
Yeah, that's the
unfortunately.
idea.
So you're dismissed. Are you not? Do you not consider? Are you not considered a foamer yourself?
I never thought of myself as foaming.
He's more of
Gently
a
perspiring.
historian.
So this is a whole cult, I guess, like of people who are obsessed or very into, very serious appreciators.
There's a serious subculture of rail fans out there, but Phil sort of occupies a very unique space, which is he is much more interested in the subway decor and the stations of New York City.
Yeah.
A lot of the rail fans are more interested in trains. Phil has devoted, decades and decades to studying the decor in the historical New York City stations.
And do you have any formal training in terms of as an artist?
Well, yeah, when I was a kid, I always liked to draw pictures and tell stories or write them down. And so it sort of like has followed me into this new venture.
And so tell me, why do you think drawing this is, I guess, why draw it versus, I guess, or have a book about this versus, say, a photo?
Well, I mean, and I'll let Ezra jump in a second, but Phil wrote this incredible encyclopedia that includes all these details and facts and history of the New York City subway stations. But Ezra and I were really struck by the art in it. There's all these amazing hand-drawn drawings of all the decor.